It's not Spotify's fault. It's not Universal Music's fault. It's not the venue down the street's fault. It's your fault, because the only way someone can ever deceive you in life is based upon your own expectations you have of them or that situation. Dispel all of the BS narratives that we tell ourselves. Well, thank you for having me.
Oh man,
Thanks
I'm
for
glad
coming.
you're here. You and I got to hang out on the phone a little bit and meet each other, and I got to hear your story, which I think is fantastic. It's why I wanted to have you here. And Miles didn't get to hear it, so um, do me a favor. Like, where are things at right now with you and your business? What are you doing?
Mm-hmm. So I'd like to answer that with a question.
Yeah.
Which is the focus of the subtle art of not yelling. What's the premise?
Well, building a business, being creative, getting your creative work done, all of that without uh, being the loudest person in the room. You know, there's all those people that go, "Hey, look at me! Look what I'm doing," and that's very uncomfortable for most of us. So, I'm just
And to add on top of that,
yeah,
I'd say
add to
there's
that.
there's an undertone of most people that listen to this, and a lot of people that come on, but not everyone, are more introverted. So it's kind of like we're not maybe as good at the hustle grind till you drop kind of vibe. So it's more like, how can we do things without that, but still build a business and build an audience?
Absolutely.
And then also the inner game, because that's what I think
It's
separates.
everything.
Yeah,
It's everything.
Yeah, that context is very helpful because, as the two of you know, the answer always depends on who you're talking to. Just like if you're a
Sure.
performer, a promoter might ask you, "What's your favorite genre to perform?" And in my head, I'm saying my favorite genre is money, right? But then, it depends on, like, hey, if it's a corporate event, maybe, hey, I'll do some show tunes, I'll do some jazz standards, so it just depends. But understanding, who this podcast is really for helps me shape my answer better for you. So I founded a company called Aspirio. Aspirio is a platform that brands use to buy custom music and audio branding solutions. Concretely, the platform allows for a brand to match with primarily music creators, and post a brief about what they're particularly looking for. In most cases, our clients are sensory advertising agencies whose responsibility is to buy music on behalf of an end client, such as a retailer or a shopping mall, a resort that requires custom music solutions in commercial spaces. So this customer tends to be buying music in large quantities, catalogs of music at a time. I got into doing this because one of the many hustles I've had as a creative entrepreneur was the buying and selling of IP. So I studied at Berklee College of Music in Boston, which is how I actually got connected with you, because we both are alumni.
Yeah.
And while I was studying at Berklee, I got into publishing and writing for like sync and things. And I just realized it was a big mystery to a lot of artists. And so when I left Berkeley, Boston, and did the whole Los Angeles thing, chasing the rock star life, I found out there was a another side of publishing, which was even lesser known, which was sensory advertising, uh, which is the art of creating the experience of what you see, hear, and smell in commercial spaces. So long story short, I got in good with a really big client that's in Poland. And this is a publicly traded company that does sensory advertising for hundreds of thousands of physical commercial spaces and retailers around the world. And what happens is one day I end up in Spain some years later, and a song that I had sold to them was playing in a store that wasn't a part of their catalog. And I was like, well, that's crazy. How did this happen? And why don't I know? I'm refraining from using names because of documents that I've signed. But the point is that I realized that I was leaving a lot of money on the table, not just as a songwriter and buyer and seller of IP, but also as a performer of these songs. And it turns out that those songs are also work for hire. And so you can imagine walking into a store that has 8,000 locations around the world and knowing that your song is playing in all of them. It's like a dagger to the heart, right?
Yeah.
So at the time, however, I was studying a master's here in Valencia at Berkeley, Valencia, and I was working on a software for distribution. My goal was to like go head to head with like a DistroKid or something like that. But when I had that experience walking into that store, I saw an opportunity to pivot toward something that was really painful for me, and it was probably happening to other creators around the world, which led me to creating this cloud solution that allows you to create and distribute these songs directly with brands. So, to your question, where are we today? I went through a crazy experience with raising money in the company through with the VC and with the co-founder. That was, if you've ever seen the series Silicon Valley, it really is like that. It's crazy. And middle of 2022, I was, by decision of the board, fired as the CEO. And that was something I could have never imagined happening, particularly because I was the one in the business with the most expertise around the industry, our customers, and even our acquisition strategy of our providers, which were music creators. Uh, but for several reasons, number one, I was shouting at the top of my lungs, speaking of which, about the emergence of AI.
Yes.
They didn't listen to me. I made it very clear when I gave the product vision of like, hey, board, investors, stakeholders, here's where we're going to go next, going into the next year, really focused on AI tools. Um, our lead investor laughed at me, literally, and said, the industry won't be ready for another 5 to 10 years for AI. And then the people at large is a whole other thing. But I know a gentleman named Fox Harrell, who's over at MIT. And Fox has been talking about, machine learning and intelligence, um, artificial emotional intelligence, all these things. I got hip to him back in 2015. So, I knew that this was coming. And I also knew that even once I was making it a part of our initiative, we were already late to the party. Because
Yes.
what many people don't know about venture capital is that there are a lot of companies being built right now in stealth mode that don't shout at the top of their lungs because they have investors covering their bums, right? They don't have this pressure to go to the market and make money because it's not the point. It's about creating disruptive products. So I knew that even still with the information I had, we were still a bit slow, but I figured we could still get into the game. And like in any startup, the name of the game is survive. So I exit the company because that's, by the way, anyone watching this, anytime you see that a business has sold or been acquired for an undisclosed amount of money, it's because it wasn't a good deal. Someone didn't get a good deal and the numbers weren't pretty enough to talk about. So I exited. The press said what it said. It looked like it was very amicable. Um, Long story short, once all of that went down, the following year, last year, I decided that, okay, I'm going to go back to what I do really well, which is making music, but with the requirement that every step that I take, I document and I offer it to my artist community as a blueprint on how they can go directly to brands to do their own events and content. So particularly today I describe my project is called Think Mogul as a creator and brand accelerator. And we're highly focused on sponsored content and sponsored events between brands and creators. And so I launched that, and within a very short period of time, we got support from the local government. They provided some grants for getting a space, particularly a production studio, and lots of gear, equipment from an old TV station they had. And very quickly, we were doing collaboration with brands. Why were the brands working with us? Because many of them are new to this world of influencer and affiliate marketing, and they understand that the real asset today is attention. And so, my value proposition to businesses wanting to enter into the Spanish market where I'm located was, hey, we're going to match you with one of our local creative influencers, specifically like a musician, a DJ, a chef, anyone that's more creative focused. And we're going to promote you at a sponsored event. So, how does it work? We go to a venue and we say, hey, do you have any dead dates? Meaning, someday on the calendar would you love to have activity, but you don't want to invest money into paying a band or some entertainment? And they say, okay, we have X date available. So then we say, great. We want to propose a sponsored event between this brand and artist or influencer. And the brand covers all the costs in exchange for the artist or influencer being able to promote their product during your event. And there's no risk for you. We bring you a new clients as well, and you become a distribution channel for this brand. And so that's what we've been doing. Now, in this journey, what happens? June of last year, I was contacted by my ex co-founder from the software company.
By the way,
And
this is my favorite part of the story.
yeah, yeah. So, uh, so this stuff is crazy because number one, as I'm going through the story, I like to say to anyone watching, always keep your cool. Even when someone wrongs you, keep your effing cool because it becomes all your leverage later. So, uh, a few things. My co founder tried to paint a different story to me of how the business was going in my absence. And because I have good relationships with people in the government, some politicians, some people in banking, I was privy to some information, particularly about cash flow and the number of deals, or sales being closed monthly. And I also was still um, a part of some accounts that I probably shouldn't have still been listed on, but I saw.
Yeah.
And when my ex co-founder came to me, he said, "Hey, like we want you to come back, doing X thing." And I, you know, literally scratched my head and I said, "Look, like my life is amazing. I've moved on. I wish you the best." Because by the way, guys, when I, you have to understand that when you have a business and you decide to also work inside of your business, you have two responsibilities. Number one is as an operator, and the second is as an owner. And those are two, many times, highly conflicting roles.
Oh, yeah.
Very difficult to
Absolutely.
do both at the same time because
Yeah.
there were times where I had to make decisions as the director, CEO, call it whatever you want, the captain of the ship, that went in complete conflict to my value system as an owner of a company.
Yes.
So I had to go out and get external advice. And this is also what a board is for, to help like me navigate me, right?
Yeah.
Because in business they have something that's called, at least when you're going for like fast growth startups, a lot of times investors ask you, what's your exit strategy? Because they also
Yes.
have their own. And when we say exit strategy, we say, hey, the business that you love being in today might not be the one you love in 10 years. So what are the conditions that you want to see when you decide you want to sell or get out of the business? Who would you sell to, etc.? So that's called the long play. And the long play is very relevant to an owner, for example, who's like, hey, I care about 7 to 10 years from now. Whereas an operator, their responsibility is to take what you have at the moment, maximize it, keep you alive so that you can get to a year from now, 2 years from now. But there's so many unforeseen variables beyond that that you can't, you can only give them the 7 year play as a reference point, as the North Star, but
Yeah.
that's not the responsibility to focus on that. They're on the here and now. So I often found myself living in two worlds at the same time, very difficult thing. All that being said, uh, when I was made the offer to come back in, I was very happy with my decision to let that go because I realized that the way I was operating was very mission driven. And it was like what Michelle Obama said in her book. She said, um, same objective, different method. I'm paraphrasing. But my point is, my objective for creating Aspirio is the same objective or mission of why I created Think Mogul,
Right.
which is to take artists to the money and first and foremost, dispel all of the BS narratives that we tell ourselves. It's not Spotify's fault. It's not Universal Music's fault. It's not the venue down the street's fault. It's your fault because the only way someone can ever deceive you in life is based upon your own expectations you have of them or that situation. So if you've got your own expectations in order, in many ways, you can kind of walk through life a bit invincible because you can look at any situation or any person and understand what is a healthy expectation to have. So this sounds long-winded, but you asked me a question, and it has a loaded response because you said
It's all
what's
good.
business today. So the context is important because it all points to the why and my motivations. So ex-co-founder reaches out to me and say, no, thank you. I'm aware of how the business is actually doing. I wish you would have listened to me. I'm not hurt. I went through therapy and I'm going through therapy because you have to also understand, like, when you launch a business and you get invested in, there are some, let's say, very ego oriented things that come along with it, like your net worth.
Yeah, not to mention like that's your child
It was literally
emotionally.
my
You
child.
grew this thing, and you have your net worth and all of it tied up together. That's a lot to untangle,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And I walked away from all of it. Like, I can't say numbers, but um let's just say that, I took no severance. I didn't, like, no buyout. I'm not going to, but I'll just do a symbol. Like, I took nothing because I was that sure about my resolve around making sure that creators come closer to the technologies that we have today and understand that everything changes, everything is transitory. And the best thing that you can do is try to see it for what it is and figure out how you can use it to your advantage. So I'm getting somewhere with this. I'm almost finished with the answer. I then get contacted by the investors of the company, and they say, "Hey, got some amazing news." And I say, "Well, what's that?" "We're selling the business." And I'm like, "Wow, that's crazy. You're going to auction off my baby for parts and pieces." It's called a fire sale. You know, imagine if you're selling a car, you're just trying to get rid of it. You sell it for parts. You like whatever you can get out of it, you strip it down. So uh, it was interesting because what was happening inside of our accelerator and Think Mogul is that now we're hitting some of the glass ceilings that I experienced with the buying and selling of IP, which is you need to sign lots of contracts. You need to split payments between providers, so all the different artists who are working on one project together. Imagine in one song, you can have 2 collaborators or 25. You
Right.
need storage. So now here I am again back into a world of like managing really rich files inside of Dropbox or whatever, sending protocols or using content management systems. Um, and I saw another thing, which is that I saw as well in Aspirio, the music that we were making, that our creators were making, at the end of the day ended up on advertising surfaces. The music was an ad. And you will look at the past 100 years of advertising, music has always been a very big driver. So I said to myself, what if we could convince a brand to entrust a music creator with more than just the music? Because consider this, when I was launching Think Mogul, the way that I got started was I took a group of 10 friends that I have. We all create stuff. And I've known them now here in Valencia for about 10 years. And I said, hey guys, you've been talking about doing the same multimedia projects for the past 10 years and are not done. Something's wrong. What's up? Talk me through it. So I booked a nice executive suite with the whiteboard and the coffee and everything. Made sure they were really comfortable. Got them talking, and I said, okay, come to the whiteboard, and I want you to write out all of the obstacles you have to finishing your projects. And they say, oh, well, I need someone that can like make an app, or I need a makeup artist, or I need a film creative director. I need a production assistant, whatever. They all wrote it out. Very similar things across the board. And, you know, things like, well, I get caught in a cycle of I need money to pay for these things. So then I go and work some jobs, and then the scarcity becomes time, and then I can't do my project, and so on and so forth. I said, amazing. And I said, and I held this to the end, my wild card. But then I said, okay, now come back up to the board, and I want you to think about this. Like all of the jobs you've had to do in pursuit of funding your dreams, write out the skills. Oh man. Oh man. Copywriters, graphic designers,
Yeah.
product design. Like one of the girls in the meeting, she literally makes phones for Samsung, you know?
Right.
And I said, you mean to tell me that if we just look around the room, we have the answer? I said, how has it not occurred to any of you to ask each other for help? So I said, listen, I have something that you all don't, which is brands that spend money. They have budgets every year for marketing purposes to like work with people like us. If I can get you in the room with them, are you willing to put your selfish interests aside in terms of, hey, I want to make a song that's about X because I want to express myself? Can you make a song, follow a brief for a campaign that's about a product that still matches with you, it still aligns with your values? I'm not asking you to do something that's outside of your wheelhouse, but if I can do that, will you try things my way? Will you try the mogul method? And reluctantly, they're like, sure. So with that being said, we started doing these campaigns, started hitting all these walls with like, managing files and a lot of the stuff. So I reached out to my investment community, sidebar, again, why don't lose your cool ever. I thought that because I effed up in my first startup and things went bad, that I had lost the confidence of investors. No, it's not the case. In fact, many investors prefer second time founders, third time founders, because if you're wise, you've learned from your mistakes and they can count on you to make better decisions the next time around. So we priced the acquisition, got a much better price than what they were proposing. And also, we can have another conversation another time about that if anyone ever wants to pick my brain about what it's like to buy a business. There are a lot of things that came out of that. M&A is a whole other world. But anyways, we got the company back. Really what I bought is all of the assets, the IP, which is like the code, the actual platform, the brand. We didn't buy the actual tax body because my ex co-founder created a new business of what? Music AI. Would you believe that? Shit's crazy. I love him though. He's a dope guy. Really, he's one of those Steve Jobs guys and very young. He's going to make it very far. So, with that being said, where are we today? Paperwork really just closed the middle of December. Took so long. Things take time. Much longer. If you think it's going to take a month, put down 3.
Yeah.
So today we're in a place where for cash flow reasons, I obviously had to fire the team that was inside of Aspirio. And what we've done now is the way I'm repositioning the software, the platform, is that it's an in-house app inside of Think Mogul. And it's one of the several technology solutions we put in the hands of our creators and residents to improve their back office, their cash flow as a business. Because we're not an agency, we're not a label. All we do is give creators the tools to work directly with partners in our network. Okay. So if you're like a salesperson at a sales agency, you don't really work for the sales agency. You use their tools like the CRM, their database of contacts, etc. So we closed acquisition. It's a crazy time. We raised a little bit of we call it a bridge round to like sustain us with some funding until we do like a bigger raise. And I still have my investment community. So right now I'm building new partnerships. So going, for example, to educational institutions, like mostly like media based ones that have like they teach like music production and these type of things, video, etc. And having Aspirio as a tool that they're using to get their creators ready for the real world. So like a part of their like job development initiatives. And that's going really great because, you can get 500 users from just one institution.
Right.
And apart from that, focusing on lots of sponsored events for our creators and residents. We have a waiting list because obviously it requires a lot of hands-on, but the point is that we're going like market by market. So right now we're focused on Valencia, Spain, Madrid, Spain, Barcelona, Spain. And we're having these artists, number one, improve their brand so that like we work with them on things like boosting their social media presence, having a content team around them, and then showing them to brands. And essentially like they use our tools to get booked and they do their own events. They have a production person, like a production manager that goes with them. But essentially, again, here's one word to sum it up: infrastructure.
Yeah.
We're democratizing access to infrastructure. So I apologize for that long-winded answer, but if I don't think there was any other way to really get there.
No, there
without
wasn't
giving
if you
the,
had
the
get
full
if you had given me a short answer, I would have asked you all the questions that made you, you know,
fair
end
enough.
up saying all that anyway.
I just want
The
to be a
one of
good
the
guest.
You're a great guest. One of the things I've always been struck with in talking to you is that early on, and it's I think why you went the direction you've gone is you saw this disconnect
Mhm.
mentally between artists and what you said earlier was the money, wherever that happens to be, whether that's in advertising or wherever. I love what you said. It's not Spotify's fault, you know,
It's not.
because if you look at it, something like Spotify, which I still know musicians that won't use it because
It's
they're
insane.
pissed off at it. And I said, well, then you're part of the problem because the more money we load into it, the more they can actually pay people. But the the concept of it is fantastic. I love the idea of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, is it perfect? No. But are there people who can make it work for them? Absolutely.
Here's the thing, though. I think we're struggling with much more complex concepts and people don't understand it. You know,
Yeah.
when you start to look, so my master's concretely was in economics, but focused toward the music, the entertainment industry.
Yes.
And, you know, when you look at it, anything that you want to scale by product has negative outcomes. Or let's not call them negative. There's a cause and effect.
Yeah.
So, you know, any virtuous pursuit, well-intended pursuit, doesn't matter what it is. If you want to expand energy somewhere else, you have to take it from somewhere. If what they say about science is true, that energy is neither created nor destroyed, then this principle makes so much sense.
Yes.
I want to, so here I have a little cold brew coffee project, right? Because I don't drink alcohol. Um, and I spend a lot of time in nightlife and I need a little something. So I was like, F it, I'm going to make my own, well intended. But every time that we've endeavored to scale this, we realize that we're contributing to something that's not sustainable.
Right.
Where are our beans coming from? We're like, oh yes, they're locally sourced from Honduras. We have this nice blonde bean and it's got this nice XYZ and it's artisan. How do we get it here?
Yeah.
Oh, well, no, it's not air pollution. It's coming over on a boat. Have you heard of noise pollution in the ocean? So it's like, you can't get away from it. My point is, may he who is without sin cast the first stone. Look at any part of your life, and in some way, you're contributing to what you consider to be the problem. So, dear
Absolutely.
artists, if you're saying that Spotify is the problem, the real issue might be capitalism. But I have benefited greatly from capitalism, so I can't diss capitalism. I live in a different type of society here in Spain, but even still, everyone wants to be America. So it's all trending toward a very consumeristic thing, anyways. And I just say, how about we just focus on being really good human beings and understanding that at our core, at our nature actually is goodness. Actually, we before we're tainted by the world, we naturally ascend toward abundance, but then fear sets in, right? We become afraid.
Miles and I don't always do very well with discipline, consistency, and grinding our way through the creative process.
We're also tripped up with things like overwhelm, imposter syndrome, perfectionism, and lone wolf syndrome on a weekly basis, and it's not a good feeling.
So a couple years ago, we created The Box to solve our own problem. The Box is a container and community for creatives to stay accountable, do the work, and actually finish what they started. We help you prioritize your projects and create a box around it.
We co-work twice a week for 90 minutes and support you in bringing projects to the finish line. It's not teaching you anything new. It's giving you the structure to focus and create with what you already have.
Because amazing things happen on the other side of finished. Come try it out and see how it feels at theboxcommunity.com. don't you think too, Devonte, that we're still, and I think this even happens with young people who are in, music school or pursuing creative arts in whatever way they are. And it's not just in music or art. I think it's in a lot of places, but it's a good place to show the example, is that we're still just stuck in all these myths and fairy tales about, I used to call it the starving artist myth. You know what I mean? Like and I can speak for myself. I really, the music business that I grew up with does not exist. It's gone.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure how much of it existed, by the time I actually got to it. Right. And there was always this story in my head that all I had to do was get really good, right? Get really good at playing, singing, writing songs, whatever my thing was, and go out in the world and do that. And then somehow, magically, someone would appear or something would happen. And next thing you know, I'd be making records, I'd be on the radio, and, whatever that thing was. And I honestly think that people are still locked into this, fucking fantasy that this is what happens. And
You
not
got my
just in
brain
music.
firing off right now, man. Like, listen, first of all, I want to give a shout out to my adopted parents, to Todd and Denise Carter. They're both ex-military at a very high level. My dad served as the flight surgeon for Bush administration.
Mm.
My mom is a celebrated research doctor. And the thing is, when I was at Berkeley, Boston, my dad, he just kept repeating to me, he says, hope is not a plan, number one. Second, remember who you are. And third, if we're paying for your damn education, you got to study business. My dad, my parents, they, moved through a lot of different, affluent circles. And my mom was pretty much like, until you can tell me that you know J-Lo, like, I don't want to hear it. Why was she saying that? It was because when you have a career of dealing with seeing the world for what it is, it gives you a certain type of ability to not fall for the tricks and the lies. Like I'll give you an example. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. And for a long time, I thought that I lived what's called poverty. But then my parents took me to El Salvador. They took me to Africa. And then I said, wait a minute. These kids are drinking water from the mud. They're going down on their, and they're scooping up dirty water, unsafe water. And they're still smiling. And in my situation, before I was adopted, like I didn't even have a bed. I slept on a hard floor until I was like 12 years old. Okay. And I thought that was poverty. And my parents helped me understand that there are degrees of suffering. And what I'm getting at is, when it comes to this notion of, hey, if I just do this thing, then I can get X outcome. It if anyone watching this wants to be able to get outside of that kind of construct or like groupthink, you have to ask yourself if you're really ready, prepared to have Santa Claus taken away from you. Because the thing is that sometimes our stories also protect us.
Yeah. Oh,
And you have
absolutely.
to ask yourself, what do you value? Do I value the story that helps me preserve my perception of self? Or am I ready to kill self and discover a new self in pursuit of living truthfully? And that would require like, and so if you say like, yes, like I'm ready for this version of me to die, and I'm ready to be born again in this life, then the next thing I would say is, then you have to be prepared to question everything.
Mm.
And it is a very destabilizing activity. Okay.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Very destabilizing. So now that we've arrived to this point, the correlation between what you're saying about the narrative that you bought into, if I'm just good enough, I go out there and I get seen. They say it all the time. It's like, it's not about who's the best, it's about who's the best seen. But the best
Yeah.
seen is also about who has the biggest bankroll.
Yeah.
And who has the biggest bankroll also is controlled by who owns the platform or the medium.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which is precisely why I said, instead of me being mad at Spotify, mad at big tech, I'm going to make my own tech. And the first attempt at it cost me $500,000. I'm going to make my own tech. And in that pursuit, I learned that not everything is how it seems, and that many times the adversary that's put in front of you is propped up by someone else who actually looks like an ally. So if you read a lot of articles, like let's do this activity right now, it's like, okay, Spotify is evil. Well, what makes you say that? Oh, I read an article. First of all, 101 in English Lit is triangle of resources, of
Correct.
references, right? So then it's like, all right, great. Go find two other articles that shares the same opinion. Great. Who owns that medium?
Yes.
And then you're like, holy S, it's owned by the same people. All right, that's fine, no problem. What's their agenda? Who do they support? What have they gotten behind in the past 10 years? Who's funding them?
Yeah.
So, man, I know I'm like going on a rant here, but like, my point is, it's why I don't have any sympathy for artists who are struggling, because I'm like, you could be just fine going to work in a mailroom, having a stable income, and making music at home. There's nothing wrong with that. I've had periods in my
No.
life when I've done it.
Yeah.
It's virtuous. Paying your bills is a virtuous thing. But if you talk about wanting to go out there and compete, you want to be seen, you want to be on those big festivals, it's out there for you, but you have to really be willing to play the game. Stop
Yes.
complaining.
Yep.
You know the risk. If I go to Vegas and bet my house and I lose my house, I better not treat people bad for it.
Well, and when you look at what some people, like I look at this, there's people I know that are doing, that are doing quite well. And I look at what their life looks like and what they have to do to headline this festival and have this thing happen and have that management and have that whatever. I don't want that. Right?
Yeah.
You have to look at that and say, is that what I want my life to look like?
Yep.
2 days ago, I was sitting down with one of my investors, and he because he follows me on Instagram, and he's like, you are so talented in music, because I still, like, that was one of the conditions. I said to them, I'm going to keep building my brand. I'm going to do it smart. For example, I have like ghostwriters and things now. I have ghost producers. I have it all set up because I realized that the music is a vehicle, an opportunity to say something. So I still have content that's going out. There are people who edit for me, etc. So he sees what he sees, and of course he's like, "Hey, we got this train moving again. I just want to make sure your priorities are in the right place." He's like, you know, everyone in my circle agrees that you could be a rock star. Like, you could be one of the biggest. And by no choice of your own, like, you probably even will be if someone discovers this stuff that you're working on. And he says, so why this? Why this business route? And it was like a strike of lightning hit me, because I felt like it was such an important moment that I had been trying to get to for a long time, where I would really be tested.
Mm.
Because he's also a man that like president of Sony Spain, like a friend, colleague, says, "Hey, check out this founder that I was working with. Things didn't work out with his business, but I want you to make him a star. Hell, I'll even put 100K to get started." Like, they could do that. And I had to break it down to him. I went to Instagram and I showed him the accounts of 6 friends of mine who are true global pop stars across like trap music, R&B, etc. Photos of me with them. And I said, I want you to understand that I'm here, right here in front of you, because I chose to be. I left Los Angeles and I wasn't struggling in LA. I was in the rooms, but I know what's important to me. And I know that, for example, one of these friends that I showed you, those millions of likes that they have, some of them are bought by the label. Some of them got an advance. The advance ran out and they haven't seen money in 2 years. Another one, her grandpa died and she was on tour and she couldn't leave the tour. No, thank you.
Yeah.
That's called golden handcuffs.
Yeah, it is. Hey,
So,
Wow.
there's something that I want to unpack really quick
yep.
because when you created Think Mogul,
Yeah.
so what you pointed to is that you had a process, right? That you use to create and that
Yeah.
you codified that process so that you could then share it with other
Yes.
people. We talk
Yes.
about process a lot on this
Very true.
podcast because, there's so many people, and myself included, and a lot of my clients, when I ask them what's happening and they have a problem, my first question is, well, do you have a process for that? Do you have a structure for that? Is there anything there? And the answer is no. And even coming up through music school, et cetera, as a songwriter, nobody ever gave me a process for doing that, ever. I had to figure that out for myself. What is my process for that? And even sometimes when we think we know our process, we haven't necessarily taken the time to codify it, to document it. Like you said, well, this is what I do. So could you just sort of take a quick walk through the Think Mogul process, creative process a little
Absolutely.
bit?
So I'm fortunate to stand on the shoulder of giants. And what I mean by that is I've had some incredible mentors who planted seeds very early on. One of my first mentors, she was actually my music manager when I was 15. She was at the time one of the higher ups at Price Waterhouse Cooper, PwC. And her whole approach, even with me at 15 years old, was helping me understand the real cost of everything that I wanted to do. So I was not able to perform at local venues because I wasn't 18. And she said, honey, the only way you're going to perform is if we make your own events. And she was like, I want you to understand really something really clear here. I'm not your bank, but I will help you come up with a plan to get whatever money that you need to book a venue, pay for some promotions, some radio ads, etc. And so we fell in love with what? Excel. Excel is an amazing tool. I also want to thank Berklee College of Music for having it in the music business curriculum and forcing me to do the industry apps classes where I had to use Excel. I want to thank Berkeley Valencia for having it as a core part of my master's program, because when you learn Excel or any similar tool that is about computing inputs and showing outputs and the organization of information, or what we call in tech data structures, you start to see the evolution of ideas and how every small change has a consequence. Let's take a very concrete example. So, talking about process and Think Mogul, our focus is we call them hackathons. So, hackathon in other industries is just the bringing together of very competent minds to solve complicated problems. And so when we're doing these hackathons between a brand and an influencer, what we're saying is we're going to help this brand come up with an out-of-the-box advertising solution that's driven by content that you make for them during an event. Those are only rules. But the tool is what's called a product or outcome vision statement. And it's one of the templates that we provide. And this canvas is literally a big canvas we printed out. It's so much fun. It's like being 5 years old in preschool, and we put it up on the wall. And it has different quadrants, such as who's the target? You go through creating the entire psychographic profile of what do they do? Where do they live? How much money do they make? What types of things do they buy? What are the problems they have in their day-to-day life? What things have they already hired to solve the problem for them? So, for example, if we're talking about a shoe brand that wants to hire a new solution or a better marketing channel for them, one of the things they might be doing right now is using a tool like Snowball for affiliate marketing. Or maybe they're using a TikTok store to get affiliates to sell products for them. And then you would talk to them and you would, like on this canvas, you're mapping it out. It's like, okay, what are the problems with Snowball? What are the problems with TikTok store? What are the pain points, we call it? What are those solutions doing really well? What is the cost of switching? What that means, ladies and gentlemen, is how much will it cost this organization to choose you as a solution? Because many times it might seem very simple, but when you think about the more complex an organization is, the more expensive it is for them to choose a new solution. And many times they will have something that's a leaky boat. They know that they're losing water or revenue, but they also know that if they want to replace that, it's going to cost them 7, 8, 10 times more. So your responsibility is to help them see how much money they're leaving on the table every day they don't choose you. And this type of tool, this product or this vision canvas will help you map out all of the logic so that it's no longer about emotion. And the objective is at the end of the activity, you as the artist or creator should come away with a clear understanding of if the pain that the brand has is painful and uncomfortable enough that they're willing to fork out money today for the solution that you propose to them. So it requires you to really have a very methodical approach to understanding what the hell they're going through. And this can all be summarized with one word: empathy. Dapper Dan, one of the most famous fashion designers, said, you know what the real problem is with artists? They're fucking selfish. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me try that again. Just to edit that out.
No, please.
I already said it once, man. It's fine.
Okay, you said the F word. Okay.
It doesn't hit the same if you don't add the F word.
Yeah,
really.
But his point was like, the reason why he was successful in his career was because when he was bringing in the rappers and different entertainers into his showroom, he started to understand, like, if you can make a client feel like what they're putting on their body is really for them, it's unique, it's their own statement. It's not about him as a fashion designer or a stylist. It's about the person who's going to put on what you created for them. And guess what? Then they become your ambassador. They become your champion. They go out into the community and talk about what you've done for them. So if you can create and you lead with empathy and you're not thinking about this, because that's a result of creating value, then you win. Money's not a problem. And I'll give you a key example. So we launched Think Mogul February, like we're celebrating 1 year. And now collectively our 8 artists in residence, they're doing, let me not get this number wrong. I have it here. So we're doing $19,000 a month now in events. And that might not sound like a lot across that amount of artists, But keep in mind, what that means is we have convinced brands to do deals with us anywhere from 500 to 3,000 per event. They're paying these artists to go out there and be a point of sale for them. They're doing their own music. Some of them do covers, but the ones who don't have their own their repertoire yet, they're doing their own music. They're getting to show up as themselves, and they're promoting cosmetic brands, shoes, beverage companies. And so speaking, like, because I know we're getting to the end of this, speaking of the art of not yelling loud, or yes, the art of subtly not yelling. We're technically a nobody, and we don't have a lot of marketing that we do. But what I've focused on right now is all of the growth under the soil.
Yeah.
Because if I want to give an infrastructure to someone else, we have to have an infrastructure for giving infrastructure to others.
Yeah.
So in many cases, I use myself as a case study. Friends that I know, I put up my own money, and then my girlfriend, she came in as a partner. She's a very successful athlete, has her own athletic club and things here in Europe. She came on as a partner because we also saw that athletes suffer from similar things, trying to put themselves on. And now we're at a place where we're expanding. We're able to help support more creators in some automated ways. And we're getting ready to do some really fun things around like growth marketing. We're using doing like a virtual hackathon using Hyped It. I don't know if you know this tool, but Hyped It lets you build like ads for song releases. And we're like saying, hey, artists who's starting nowhere, you got 20 euros, $25 to promote your next project. How do you use it? How do you take 25 and turn it into 100? And so we're doing these right now, recording these just like this with artists around the world. And we're saying, just come with your small budget. We're going to build it with you. And then the requirement is you have to pay it forward. Then once you've built yours, now you got to bring a friend and bring them on and build it with them. Because Think Mogul doesn't belong to me. Think Mogul, the reason why I put that as the title, ladies and gentlemen, is because all it is a reminder every time you look at it.
Yeah.
Think Mogul. You are the vehicle. You have all the leverage. You have to be very okay with people looking at you like you're crazy. They're going to tell you you're crazy until you're a genius. I've lived it, and I'm so happy that I was resilient, that I had the resolve to not let my temporary circumstances convince me that I was a failure, because it's very easy to happen. Like I had months where I was forking out $25K a month in payroll, and I wasn't even having enough money to eat. I was sleeping on the floor of our film studio, and no one knew it, and I never complained about it because I understood that at some point it would pay off. So I'm not sure if I answered that question per se about processes.
Yeah, wait, I actually would love to. First, I want to say, Devonte, I think this is the first episode where I've said 0 words, and I'm so happy about it because I'm just like enamored by your mind and the way you speak. It's very like methodical. You can tell, I can feel your mission in what you're doing and what you're speaking.
Thank you.
I have so many things I want to talk about, so you have to come back.
Oh, yeah, you're coming back, dude. I mean, I haven't even scratched the surface.
Yeah,
I know. I'm sorry, I talk so much.
No, this is good. No,
great.
You're not talking
awesome.
so much. What you're doing is you're sharing your experience, and it's like one of the coolest stories I've ever heard. And I wanted to just give like my feedback on what I just heard as the process, because I think it would be helpful for others. And I'm not saying, I'm sure this is off, but this is what I heard. Correct me where I'm wrong. But first off, pave your own path. So you have to unlearn all the myths that people tell you and the things that we're born into. And you got to break all that and kind of create your own, like open up, build your own doors to open. Stop looking for other doors and waiting for other things to come to you. Second, which I really appreciate, which isn't talked about enough in the creative space, is like data structure having an Excel sheet and understanding how to do that, how to organize that data and use it to show value, create leverage, remove emotion. And then we have, maybe out of order, but create selflessly,
Yeah.
because creating selfishly is natural. It comes fairly easy. That's what's so fun about it. But having constraints where you have to think about other people, advertising is a great example. Having clients is a great constraint where you have to get out of your own mind and creative process and create for someone else, which forces really good things to come. I think that's huge. And then there's some other details in there, but kind of the last one is like give back, give and ask for support, bring people with you, collaborate.
Absolutely. No, you're on the money. And the thing is, creating selflessly, the iterative process of getting to selflessness actually turns your selfish endeavors into selfless ones. Because when you understand that what you also need as a person to thrive in life is the reciprocal support and love and nurturing of your community, you will serve that selfish endeavor to be loved as well. And so one of the requirements to that is giving to others. And there's actually, before you kick me off of here, if I can just say a couple things that I think are important. There's a book that I was gifted by a mentor of mine. My mentor, he doesn't really like me calling him this, but he's my $1 billion mentor. He's built a very successful business called AppFire, which they own the most amount of apps inside of the Atlassian space. And if you know products like Trello, Jira, et cetera. So there's companies behind a lot of those products. And he gave me this book. No, he made me buy the book, A Beautiful Constraint. And one thing that A Beautiful Constraint about is not accepting trade-offs, because many people will go for the simplest solution and they're uncomfortable with holding two contrarian ideas at the same time. But what you will find out is that by not accepting trade-offs, you find a sweet spot that has a much higher barrier of entry or harder to compete with and has the highest payoff. So I'm going to give you an example. I'm always about going to the edge. I don't go to the edge with things like drugs or anything because I really like to respect my body. But in terms of life, I want to know that I've lived as big and hard as I can. So for me in business, that also informs my decisions that I make. And one of the things that we did last year was I realized by June that I was going around to a lot of brands and trying to convince them to buy into this end-to-end solution for like influencer marketing, which is you get matched with the influencer, we create the content with you, you manage it in the cloud inside our app, and then finally you push them to display ads, which is DOOH, display out of home. We have some partners, they own digital billboards throughout Spain. So we do this event, we make some content for you, we reconfigure it, and we show them as ads. QR code, our influencers are making commission on the back end. It's not just one-off influencer deals. So they're like, many brands are like, ugh. So I ended up seeing this podcast called A Diary of CEO, and he had a woman on named Cody Sanchez. She's the GOAT. If you end up watching this, please know I would love to meet you someday. I follow you all the time. But awesome. Cody did she talked a segment about creative acquisition of businesses. And she said, there are many times that you can walk into a business and buy it and put zero cash down. Life is funny. I watched this episode. A week later, I'm sitting down with two owners of a shoe brand that I got introduced to through my girlfriend because she's done campaigns with them as a pro athlete for their shoes. Sitting with them, and I was going to sell them on making us their exclusive provider of like influencer marketing content. The owners say to me, well, actually, it's part of why we're sitting down with you because our portfolio, like our other products in our portfolio, are performing really well, and we're considering like either selling or shutting down our shoe division. And I'm like, no, don't do that, please. Like, I want you as a customer. And they're like, no, we have a different idea in mind. We think that you'd be the perfect buyer. And I'm like, wow, I'm so flattered that you think that I have the liquidity to just buy a shoe company.
You buy your
I
shoe
feel like
game,
I'm
yeah.
Master P or Jay-Z or something. And they're like, no, no, listen, we've known you now for a couple of years. We've watched how you move. We know you got the software play going. And now what you're doing with influencers, that makes so much sense. Um, we can do a different type of deal with you. And I'm like in this moment sitting there talking to these people, and I'm like, wait a minute. Am I really having this conversation right now? Little Devonte from Cincinnati, Ohio, that was sleeping on the floor, bed bug infested apartments in the projects, police coming into our house because my mom's boyfriend is the drug lord, and they got all types of crazy stuff going on. Thank goodness I didn't lose faith. Thank goodness I didn't just accept the easy path. Thank goodness I wrote inside of my journal every day, like, Bart Simpson at the chalkboard, I will not be bad. I will not be bad. I'm writing, I will make it out. I will make it out. I will make it out. I made it my affirmation. And I know that I'm still alive today because there are people who need to understand this story, that you are not your current circumstance and you should not accept trade-offs. And anyone that tells you that you can't have your cake and eat it too, what they don't realize is that all you need to do is adjust what your cake is. And if you make it a virtuous pursuit, a virtuous cake, then hell yeah, you better also eat that cake that you make. So to get to the end of the story, Think Mogul has bought into a shoe brand, and it's given us this crazy leverage to let our creators have an in-house brand that they get to actually practice making real advertisements for and with. Ambitious, has a high possibility of failing, but even the fact that it's ours, we get to define what failure means. But I'll tell
Right.
you really quick, one of the things we did in August, I put up my own money, organized a boat cruise. And we did a party called Tricolor. I brought out a famous radio DJ and two influencers are twins. They're from Colombia, called Los Twins. We made it sponsored by the shoe company. We put obviously shoes on the influencers, and we did a product display, QR code showing an ad. The QR code went straight to a Los Twins customized page with the shoes that we were promoting for the event. We sold 89 pairs of shoes on a boat in the middle of the
That's
water.
awesome. That's awesome.
At 65 euros a pair, you do the math.
Yeah, that's good.
I used that, and I put up like 3,000 euros. My girl, she put up like 2 or 3. We made our money back because we also charged tickets to get on the boat. But the point is, we used that deal to close a really big deal that we actually just closed a couple of days ago, which is a 100,000 euro contract for us to do sponsored events all year long at one of Valencia's premier rooftops in the city called Palau Alameda. 100,000. And we're going to be putting our brands, our artists. We're there 3 times a week. This is a multi-space complex that has a nightclub on the floor. Middle is this this bistro restaurant, and on top is the rooftop bar. And they have entrusted us because we put up our own money, and we're not rich. We had to do a lot of crazy things, a lot of side hustles, doing sales engineering for companies, her doing her athletic club, etc. But my point is, ladies and gentlemen, don't accept trade-offs. Just put your excuses to the side. Shut up right now and get to work. And
Well, I'm pretty sure you just named the episode. Shut up right now and get to work. Man.
Well, thank you so much.
You have to come back. You got to come back. You got to come back sooner than later. It is such a joy to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And if you're looking for me, my artist project is Mogul the Savant. So that's MOGUL DASAVANT. I started a new project under my birth name, doing somewhere around 30 million streams on Spotify as Devonte. And it's all to make a point. People think I take the project really serious, but I'm really just making a point. Like, I started at zero. I don't know if you've seen Grant Cardone on Undercover Billionaire, but he was landed in the middle of bum F nowhere. And built a $4 million business, not using his contacts or anything. So you can do it. Start right where you are. If you're looking for us, you can find us on LinkedIn. It's Think Mogul, or just search Mogul to Savannah. It's also on my profile. And I'd be happy to talk with you. And final thing I want to announce, ladies and gentlemen, speaking of Excel, for the month of February, I'm doing something called Accelerate, which is hopping on one-on-one sessions with creators and startup entrepreneurs. And whatever you want to build, if it's a new project, you want to make your own mini series, or you're trying to get a company financed, I will sit with you and show you what I know. If you know anyone who's also very passionate about Excel, send them my way and they can come on as a mentor.
Awesome. I love that. I want to partake in that.
Love to have you there.
That wraps another episode of The Subtle Art of Not Yelling, your home for creative growth.
If our words have resonated with you, subscribe, share, and leave us a review. It means a lot and helps us reach more creative entrepreneurs.
Join us next week as we continue to explore the art of quietly becoming a creative superpower and thriving without yelling.
Until then, keep nurturing your ideas, honing your craft, and shipping your work.
Because amazing things happen on the other side of finished.